Greetings and welcome to Hexed Encountered. I'm Joe. In this video, we're going to do a combo here because I wanted to do it all in one, kind of. So we're going to do a quick first look, and then we're going to get into some gameplay to kind of speed things along, because this is not a brand new game. This is the second edition of Shiloh, April 6th, 7th, 1862 from Worthington, old school war games. So this is part of a series. They have a brigade series, I think is what it's called. And this was either the second or third game. The first game I'm pretty sure was Antietam, which I also have. And I have the 7 days battles as well, and Gettysburg and Franklin on the way. So I do have the entire series, but we're going to start with Shiloh because it is April. This battle took place in April. And this is a battlefield I've visited, so and I visited it back in December. So it's actually kind of somewhat still fresh in my mind. Take a quick look at the back here. So it says right there, Volume 2 in the Civil War Brigade Battle Series. So it says gamers will be up and playing Shiloh in minutes with 8 pages of series rules and limited special rules that reflect events significant to that battle. With streamlined mechanics, gamers can refight the Battle of Shiloh in 2 to 4 hours. Based on extensive research of the order of battle, the counters accurately reflect the armies of North and South. Okay, refight the battle that nearly turned the tide of the war in the West with 2 scenarios and 5 what-if options, such as Van Dorn arriving with the Army of Trans-Mississippi, or Buell not arriving, and more. Gamers will have options to see what might have been. This game will provide countless replays and hours of enjoyment to history buffs trying to see if they can recreate or change history. So this is a 2-player game. It is solitaire friendly, 4 out of 10 difficulty. So on the lower side of medium, it's for ages 14 and up, and gameplay 3 to 4 hours. It's got a mounted game board, 4 counter sheets, dice, rule book, battle book, player aid cards. Sorry about that. All right, so I'm going to I took the shrink wrap off already, so we're just going to look in here real quick. Baggies. 2D10, red and blue. The playbook, 2 playbooks. It's very cool that they give you 2 copies of these things, because with 2-player game, it is nice if both players can have their own. And then 2 copies of the series rules as well. So we'll start real quick with the rules. And what I'm going to do is I'll make bookmarks or chapters, if you would prefer, here in the video, so that you can skip the first look if you just want to get to gameplay, or vice versa. If you want to see the first look, you can watch it and then decide to watch the gameplay or save the gameplay for later and jump right back in where you were. Okay, so shown in blue, highlights throughout the rules are key rules. So that's the important stuff, right? So key concepts and rules. Stacking. Each hex may contain 1 combat unit per hex. Combat units are infantry, cavalry, or artillery. Leaders are non-combat units. Any number of leaders may stack in a hex with any friendly unit. Markers show different game functions and are not units. Any number of markers may be in the hex with a unit. So it's real simple. You have 1 unit, any number of markers or leaders. Zone of control. All combat units have a zone of control that extends into the 6 hexes surrounding the hex they occupy. That's standard. This zone of control crosses all terrain types except terrain that is prohibited to cross or enter. So we'll find that out in a bit, but that's pretty standard and straightforward. This is as well. Units entering an enemy zone of control must stop movement for that turn. Units may move out of enemy zones of control during the movement portion of their turn, but may not enter the same unit zone of control in that turn. So you can't kind of go out and kind of move around and then move back in. They may enter a different enemy unit zone of control. It costs 1 extra movement point to exit an enemy zone of control. Routed units don't have zone of control other than the hex they occupy. So there's your key rule, which just kind of summarizes it. Strength points and strength counters. All combat units have a number value in their lower right corner, shown in a colored box. This is their strength points, or SP. The infantry and cavalry combat units' full strength points is shown on the front or full color side of the unit. The back of the unit is a lighter shade and has an SP value that is roughly half, depending on the morale of the full strength SP. In combat, a unit's SP may not be split up to combat multiple hexes. That's fairly standard as well. As combat units suffer losses in combat, an SP marker is placed under the unit to show its new lower SP. As the unit suffers additional losses, the SP marker is rotated, flipped, or replaced to reflect the unit's current lower SP. Rotate the SP marker so the unit's current SP is at the top. And then you have examples here. When a unit reaches 0 SP, it's eliminated and removed from the board. Okay, shattered. When an infantry or cavalry combat unit, but not artillery, loses roughly half its original SP, the unit is flipped to its backside and considered shattered. Shattered units may not enter an enemy zone of control, but do not have to exit enemy zone of control during movement and may fire offensively and defensively. Shattered units may not use the column movement bonus. So basically, I guess they become mostly defensive and can retreat, but they cannot advance to contact with an enemy once they have been shattered. Okay, morale. A unit's morale reflects its ability to withstand combat. Morale is shown on combat units by the box color surrounding its SP. Morale is either green, which is a morale number of 5, black is 7, or gold, which is 9. When doing a morale check, roll the 10-sided die and apply any die modifiers based on terrain or leaders. If the modified die results higher than the number of the unit's morale color, the unit routes. Okay, so morale is going to either be green, black, or gold. Game scale, each hex will represent 250 yards side to side. Each game turn represents 1 hour of daylight or 3 to 4 hours of night. Combat units, each infantry or cavalry unit normally represents a brigade, with each strength point representing 100 men, roughly. Infantry and cavalry are combat units. Artillery units are normally battalion strength, with each strength point representing 2 cannons that is adjusted for cannon type and range. Artillery are combat units. Examples. Non-combat units. Leaders are the Army Corps and division leaders of their armies. Leaders are not combat units. Okay, so here they show the kind of the chain of command from Lee, who's the army leader, to Longstreet, to D.R. Jones, who is the division leader. You can see that Drayton and D.R. Jones here underneath Longstreet. Then you have all of the above units with the red bar at the top are brigades in D.R. Jones' division. They may trace command to any of the shown leaders. And our map represents the area on which the main part of the battle was fought. The map includes dominant terrain features that will affect movement and or combat. A hex grid is shown on the map to regulate movement and combat. Only numbered hexes are playable. Player aids. We have a fire range chart, unit morale chart, unit movement allowance, combat chart, terrain effects chart. Turn track shows time of entry for reinforcements. There's a loss track to keep track of the losses for each side. The units, at the top of the unit is the brigade or unit leader name. The name is in a color bar that matches all units in that unit's division color. Below that is the division rule, division/corps leader, for this unit. This is important when checking command range from that unit to its division or corps commander. Below that, to the right, is the unit starting setup hex or turn of entry in the game. Okay, so you can see this here. Then to the bottom left is an icon showing the type of unit. So this is an infantry, soldier firing a rifle, charging horseman is cavalry, cannon is artillery, horseman standing is a leader. Okay, infantry and cavalry show full strength on the front. On the back is the half strength side, and units reduced to their backside, as we already learned, are considered to be shattered. Infantry, cavalry, and artillery units with the names in gold bars and an asterisk are independent commands and always in command. Okay, cavalry is always considered mounted unless they are marked dismounted. Artillery units have a front side showing a cannon firing or a backside limbered showing a cannon attached to a limber wagon for movement. During the offensive artillery phase, the active player may fire with artillery units in range and line of sight of opposing units. If an artillery unit does not move, if it does not fire, it may move. Then you've got leader stuff here. If the backside of the leaders will show the word REPL, replacement, meaning his leader radius is reduced from 4 to 3 hexes. Leaders stacked with combat units that make a morale check apply a -1 die roll modifier to the morale check. Only one leader modifier may apply, even if more than one leader is in the hex. Right. Getting started. Players should select the scenario assigned to command. And then the turn sequence. So here's our turn sequence. The first player does command phase, organization phase, offensive artillery phase, movement phase, combat phase. And then you have second player defensive fire, first player offensive fire, first player rally, and then second player, and everything basically flips. The turn markers advance to the next hour on the turn track. Players continue the sequence until the end of the scenario being played. Explanation of the command phase. Command control is determined during the command phase in order to move into an enemy zone of control. A combat unit must be in command control. In order to be in command control, a unit must be in command radius, it's missing a word there, of its respective division or corps leader. Okay, the color bar the unit name is in should match the color bar of its leader. That makes sense. Infantry and cavalry are in command if within 4 hexes of their respective division or corps commander. Artillery is in command if it's within 4 hexes of any friendly commander. If in command during the command phase, they remain so for the turn. So movement will not change that until the next turn. Units out of command may not move into enemy zone of control, but may remain in one if they start the turn in it and can fire offensively and defensively. Okay. Leaders. So both sides have Army, Corps, and Division leaders. All leaders add a -1 die roll modifier. We know that. For morale checks. An Army or Corps leader stacked with a Division leader of their command extends the command radius for that Division leader by 1 to 5 hexes. So an example, Lee provides a -1 modifier to any unit in the Army he is stacked with, while Jackson provides -1 to any unit from his Corps he's stacked with, and Hood provides a -1 modifier to any unit from his division that he is stacked with. That makes sense. Organization phase, what does that mean? We have a rule here about what happens if an enemy unit enters a hex adjacent to a leader alone. If that happens, the leader gets displaced to the next nearest friendly unit. Building breastworks. So the following actions depend upon the battle. Build breastworks. A unit, an infantry or dismounted cavalry unit may build a breastwork in a hex. Breastwork markers placed with the build side face up. Unit may not move nor fire offensively that turn. It may fire defensively, but if routed, the build markers removed. During the next turn organizations phase, the markers flip to the side, showing the built breastwork. If the unit moves, the breastwork marker remains in the hex and may be used by either player. The player may destroy breastworks marker during the organization phase by having a unit in the breastworks hex and removing marker. Only one marker per hex is allowed. Burning bridges, depots, and rail lines. The player places a fire-started marker on a unit adjacent to a bridge or in a depot rail line hex. Unit can be infantry or cavalry, either mounted or dismounted. The unit may not move nor fire offensively that turn. It may fire defensively. So basically, instead of being able to move or fire offensively, you can do these organizational things like build breastworks, burn things, and search for fords. Battles with unknown ford locations. Question markers will be placed next to ford locations. An infantry or cavalry mounted or dismounted unit that starts the organization phase in a hex adjacent to a ford marked with a question mark may flip the marker and either reveal a yes or no on the marker. If yes, the ford is located there and the marker remains at that location to allow units to cross. If no, the marker is removed and the hex is considered river terrain. Okay. Offensive artillery phase. The player whose turn it is may fire with any of his unlimbered artillery units that are in range and line of sight of enemy units. When an artillery unit fires, you place a fired marker on it and it can't move. Any of the player's artillery units that don't fire may move that turn. Any number of artillery units may combine their fire at a target hex as long as they each only fire once and each target is only fired at once per offensive artillery fire phase. All firing artillery must have line of sight to the target being fired upon. Any artillery unit that is firing uses the following procedure. We won't really go, I'm not going to go through this. We'll go through it when we do the playthrough here in a little bit. Movement phase, each unit type has a base movement allowance given per turn, given in a number of movement points. You can see here our infantry, dismounted cavalry, limbered artillery have 6. So basically, if they're not on a horse, they get 6. Mounted cavalry and leaders get 9. Those are your mounted mounted units. A player may move as many or as few as he wants, following all rules for terrain effects and zone of control. Pretty straightforward. During the movement phase, current player may move any unit up to its full movement points, paying the terrain cost for each hex entered and or crossed. So any hex side crossed, I guess. A unit may not spend more movement points than it has. A unit may not move across prohibited terrain. A unit may not save movement points. A unit may not transfer movement points. All standard. Units must stop when entering an enemy zone of control, but if they begin in one, they can move out and into another unit zone of control, but may not enter the zone of control of the same unit, right? And it costs 1 movement point to exit, an extra movement point to exit an enemy zone of control. Limbered artillery may not move adjacent to enemy combat units. This is a major change from earlier versions of the system. For example, if a Union unit began the turn in Confederate Unit A's zone of control, it could move out of the zone of control of A and into any other Confederate unit zone of control, but not into A's. So then we have an example here. Confederate Unit Douglas has 6 movement points. He moves into the first hex, pays 1, pays 2 for woods. The next terrain is up 1 level, so it costs 1 plus 1. And then the next one into the last hex entered, it's clear on the same level, so it costs 1. So you have 1, 3, 5, 6, and then he ends up adjacent to Gibbon there. Units may move through friendly units with no penalty. Only 1 combat unit per hex, right? Stacking rule. Markers don't count. Formation change. Artillery and cavalry can change formation. Artillery has to be limbered to move and unlimbered to conduct fire. Cavalry moves quicker when mounted, but may not fire. Cavalry moves slower, but may conduct fire combat when dismounted. To limber and unlimber for your artillery costs you 2 movement points. To mount or dismount your cavalry also costs 2 movement points, and you mark it with dismounted if it's dismounted, obviously. Basic is if you have the movement points to conduct the formation change, then you transfer that movement point to the, wait, what? The basic is if you have the movement points to conduct the formation change in the formation you are currently in, then you transfer that movement point to the formation you finish in. A mounted cavalry moves 3 movement points. Oh, okay, because of the different movement points. Right, okay. A mounted cavalry moves 3 movement points and changes formation for 2, so he would have spent 5 and have 1 left in dismounted. If he had spent 4 to 7, he could do the formation change and have 0 left. And if he spent 8 or 9, obviously he could not spend 2 movement points for the formation change. That all makes sense. The wording of this confused me a little bit, but that makes sense once you read the example. Column movement. Any unit not within 4 hexes of an enemy unit and is moving on road or clear terrain only pays a half a movement point per hex. Once it moves within 4 of an enemy unit, it pays the full terrain cost of the hex. Okay, that makes sense. Routed, shattered, and out of command units may not use this bonus. Reinforcements that are due according to scenario may enter through the entry areas on the map as listed. They may use their full movement unless otherwise stated, and may use column movement if possible. If a reinforcement area has enemy units or enemy zone of control blocking it, the reinforcing units may enter in the next closest open hex of their choice. Combat phase. During the combat phase, units conduct defensive and offensive fire support. Combat results are applied, and combat units of the moving player may advance into defending hexes vacated as a result of combat. Only infantry, dismounted cavalry, and unlimbered artillery may fire. All right, we know about where the SPs are. Units are never required to fire, so no mandatory combat. Players may combine different units firing at the same target. Each unit may only fire or be fired at once, so you only have a single combat per unit, basically. And you can't split your SPs. When having combat strength, always round down. Each unit individually, a firing unit's minimum SP is always 1. Defensive fire, all the non-moving players combat units that can legally fire may at the moving players' units. So it's basically like opportunity fire. Artillery and infantry cavalry combine their fires if line of sight is clear for all units. Offensive fire, all of the moving players, infantry and dismounted cavalry that can legally fire may at the non-moving players' units. So routed units and artillery may not fire during offensive fire. Line of sight. Line of sight is pretty straightforward. Trace a line from the center of the target unit and firing unit. If the line of sight is unable to be traced without crossing blocking terrain or units, then the line of sight's blocked. They are blocked by woods and towns. If the firing unit has a hex of equal to or higher elevation, then the firing unit elevation between it and the largest unit and the target unit, the line of sight's blocked. If the firing unit has a hex of equal or higher elevation than the target unit's elevation, the line of sight's blocked. Key rule note the wording differences between the two cases above. So hex of equal to or higher than the firing unit, elevation between it and the target, right? So if there is a hex that is higher than the firing unit between it and the target, then that makes sense. It's blocked, right? Like the old cake thing, wedding cake thing with tears. If the firing unit has a hex of equal or higher elevation than the target unit's elevation, then it would also be blocked. So they're kind of the same, except you could be higher. Your firing unit could be, not have one that's higher, but the target does, then the target is obviously below the line of sight. So it's above or below the line of sight blocking hexes. Basically, that all makes a ton of sense. Firing units being fired over that are adjacent to the target unit. So you can't fire over a friendly unit unless it's non-adjacent to the target, basically. Adjacent units always have a clear line of sight. Fire combat procedure, you indicate the target hex and the unit's firing. Check the range chart on the player aid. Modify firing units SP separately. SP may be doubled, normal, or halved and rounded down. No units SP may be modded below 1 total. All units modified SP. Reference the total number of SP firing from 2 on the vertical column of the combat chart. Roll the 10-sided die and apply modifiers from the DRM list below the combat chart on the player aid. This is also in the terrain effects chart. Determine the final modified die roll. If more than one applies, only use the one most beneficial to the defender. Okay. Cross-reference that with cross-reference 3 with 4. Apply the results from the combat chart immediately. Flank fire. A target that is fired on from 3 or more adjacent hexes adds a +1 modifier to the roll. Units firing at limbered artillery also receive a 1 column to the right shift. So your results will be a morale check, a number result, which would reduce that many SP on the target, and a number R result will reduce the SP and force the unit to retreat 2 hexes and make a morale check. A result of 10, modded or non-modded, causes a leader casualty check if a leader is present. You roll the die, and on a result of 7 or higher, the leader is killed. So you flip the leader to its replacement side. Its command range goes down to 3 hexes. Morale check is how we would do a morale check. Unit's morale based on its SP color, right? Green is 5, black is 7, gold is 9. Roll the 10-sided die. Apply any DRMs for leaders and terrain. Morale check modifiers are cumulative, with 1 for the leader and 1 for the terrain. If number rolled is higher than its unit's morale, the unit immediately routes. A die roll of 10 before modifiers is an automatic route. And we have an example. Then we have retreat and rout. A unit that retreats is moved 2 hexes away from the unit that fired on it. This is not considered movement, and terrain cost is ignored. It must retreat toward a reinforcement entry hex or a friendly leader. The owning player conducts the retreat. It may not enter the same hex twice. It may not enter or cross prohibited terrain or exit the board. If it cannot retreat due to the above, it's eliminated. Okay, artillery on its... So it can retreat through the enemy zone of control, but loses 1 strength point for each of those, and it can't end its retreat in a zone of control. If it ends up stacked with another unit after 2 hexes, it continues retreating until it doesn't violate stacking rules. Again, 1 combat unit per hex. Artillery on its unlimbered side that receive a retreat result is reduced by 1 strength point, in addition to the losses by combat, and flipped to its limbered side and then retreats. A leader that is stacked with a unit that's forced to retreat or rout may remain stacked with and retreat rout with the unit, or move to the closest friendly unit of the same command within 3 hexes. If that's not possible, they have to retreat with the routing unit. The unit that routs is marked with a rout marker. It is retreated 3 hexes, and again, it's not considered movement. And it has the same rules as the retreat, basically. It may not enter the same hex twice. It may not enter or cross prohibited terrain or exit the board. If it cannot retreat due to the above, it's eliminated. Same thing with the zone of control. If you have to go through an enemy ZOC, you lose a strength point, and you can't end in one. They may move 1 hex during movement phase, ignoring terrain cost, but can't move closer to an enemy unit. A routed unit that receives any results other than no result when fired on during combat retreats 3 additional hexes and remains routed. So you don't want to end up routed, basically, is what this is saying. A routed unit will always retreat toward a reinforcement entry or friendly leader if fired on while routed right. So every time you take fire and you get a result other than no result, you're going to rout another 3 hexes. Artillery on its unlimbered side at rout reduced by 1 additional. Yeah, we saw that already because it has to flip to its limbered side and rout. Routing unit may retreat through a hex but may not stop. If it ends stacked with another unit after 3 hexes, it continues routing until it does not. So basically it's the same as retreating, except it's 3 hexes instead of 2, and you can have stacked results if you take any damage at all from combat other than no result. And we have our rally phase. All of the current player's units with rout markers that are in command may attempt to rally. So you roll against your morale check with all modifiers applied. If they pass, it's removed. If it fails, it keeps the rout marker on until its next turn's rally phase, when it can try again. If it does not further rout as a result of a failed rally, and remove all fired markers from friendly artillery. Night turns. During scenarios with night game turns, units may not enter an enemy zone of control. All fire ranges at night are 1 hex. During night turns with double asterisk, stragglers are checked for units with losses. To check for stragglers, you roll a die. For each infantry and cavalry brigade that have taken strength point losses on 1 to 5, no stragglers are recovered. On a roll of 6 to 8, the unit recovers 1 SP, and on a 9 to 10, it recovers 2. Reduce the casualties on the casualty track. No unit may recover more strength points than they began the scenario with. So that's a cool rule, because obviously during combat, you had people who would run, and then this represents kind of recovering them back to their units. Tide of battle markers. Each player has a tide of battle marker that has the image of a die. Tide of battle marker may be used to re-roll a die rolled by the player involving any in-command unit. The reroll may be for a morale or fire combat. It cannot be used to reroll an opponent's die roll. When used, place the tide of battle marker to the side of the board to remind players it's been used. Each multiple day battle scenario, the tide of battle marker may be used once per day. During night turns, when checking for stragglers, flip the tide of battle markers from their use to the front side of the marker. And then you've got setup. Each battle book will give you the setup, right? Victory points are awarded for terrain objectives as per the scenario book. Victory points are also awarded for casualties, and goes through that. and that is the rule book. So pretty straightforward. Let's take a quick look at the playbook here. So we have the Battle of Shiloh, Volume 2. Information on here. On the game board and partial hexes that have been blacked out, these are not playable. Any partial hex not blacked out is playable. No Confederate units may cross to the north side of Owl Creek. There is an unnumbered hex on the north side of hexes 1411 and 2820 that are only used with what-if rules. You can't build breastworks in this battle. No bridges, depots, or rail lines may be burnt in the battle, and you can't search for any fords. So basically, there is no organizational, I think that's what that was called, right? Yeah, the organization phase. There is no organization phase. Change to Rule 236. The Confederate Corps commanders do not have their names in gold bars. Instead, they're color-coded to match the brigades within their corps. The same applies to the division commanders within the corps. The Confederates had division commanders of Clark, Cheatham, Ruggles, and Withers as extra commanders in the 1st and 2nd Corps. Instead of being organized in corps, the Union Army was organized by divisions. Union division commanders had the same color coding as the brigades within their divisions. Okay, brigades in both unit and Confederate armies may trace command to any division or corps commander with a matching color bar, as well as any army commander for either side. That's Beauregard and Johnston for the Confederates, and Grant and Buell for the Union. We got some gunboats. There are 2 gunboats, the Lexington and Tyler. They're placed anywhere in the Tennessee River. They don't move, but are placed wherever the Union player wants each turn. Each gunboat may fire once may fire on any one Confederate unit within 4 hexes. They may fire during the Union artillery phase, place a fired marker. If they fire, they have line of sight automatically. They do not fire at a Confederate unit adjacent to a Union unit. So no friendly fire, right? They don't inflict casualties. They can cause an automatic morale check on whatever unit they fire on. Union gunboats are in all scenarios. No other units than the gunboats may enter the Tennessee River. Okay, so unalerted, right? This battle started, the Confederates hit the Union camps in the early morning. Most of them were, most if not all of, I think there may have been someone that maybe had some pickets out, but they caught them pretty much unawares. So unalerted, you place unalerted markers on all Union units that stood up the game board except the gunboats. The Union units must be alerted to move and have fire combat. Leave the unalerted markers on the board until a Confederate infantry or cavalry unit removes it through a looting check. The Confederates did loot the Union camps. It was very much a shock kind of thing. The Union was in complete disarray in the morning of the first day, and the Confederates looted several camps. And an unalerted Union unit that's attacked during the Confederate player turn does not get to fire defensive fire. Also, any terrain bonus forfeit. Place alerted Union on top of unalerted markers. The marker is the camp. Die roll. Slide this over. During the Union player administration phase, for each Confederate unit ending its movement within 5 hexes of a Union unit, that Union unit must roll the die. If no other Union units have been alerted prior to this turn, then a roll of 1 or 2 alerts the Union. A roll of 1 or 2 will alert the Union unit, and it may move and fire. Okay. So if it's within 5 hexes, you check this. For example, on turn 2, during the Union player's administration phase, a Confederate player has a unit within 4 hexes of Peabody's brigade. The Union player rolls the die and the results of 2. Peabody's alerted and may move and have combat. On turn 3, all units in Peabody's division are alerted. On turn 4, 2 additional divisions are alerted. And on turn 5, all Union units would be alerted. So once one gets alerted, there's a ripple effect that ultimately will make all of the Union units alerted. Attack for any encamped Union unit that's attacked during the Confederate player turn. During the Union administration phase of that turn, that unit plus all units in the attacked units division are alerted. So these are just various ways that the Union units become active or alerted, which makes them active, and the ripple effect thereof. Another example. And we have a looting check. Any Confederate unit that attacks a Union unit in a hex with an unalerted marker, whether the Union unit is alerted or not, must advance into the hex if the Union and unit right after each other is hard to read aloud. It's forced to retreat, rout, or is eliminated. Any Confederate unit that ends the turn in a hex with an unalerted marker rolls the 10-sided die and cross-references the result with the straggler recovery chart. So you remove the resulting strength point from the Confederate unit and adjust the casualty track. So basically, they're going to have a loot check, and that could end up reducing their strength points for people who looted and kind of fell out of formation and were not participating in combat during the loot time. Confederate General Johnston, who was killed during the battle on the first day. If Confederate General Johnston's killed, he's not flipped to his rep side, but is eliminated from the board. General Beauregard is then considered the commander of the army. That was the historical result. P.T. Beauregard did take over command of the army after Albert Sidney Johnston was killed. The Confederate Army of the Trans-Mississippi, we have included the Confederate Army of the Trans-Mississippi in the counter mix for use with the what if rule number 2. They are identified by the asterisk in their set up location on the counter. They do not enter play unless you use the what if rules. There are 2 scenarios. Day 1 scenario should take 2 to 3 hours. Full battle should take 4 hours. Following applies to all scenarios. The Confederate player is first in all scenarios. In setup and reinforcements, unless it states otherwise when speaking of divisions, it means all units, including artillery and the division leader who may be placed with any unit in his command. Each corps or division commander starts setup with or adjacent to any unit in their corps or division. Artillery may start limbered or unlimbered. Cavalry may start mounted or dismounted. Scenario 1 is the first day, starts at 0500 and ends after the Union 1800 turn, basically nightfall, which is turn 14. Turn 1, April 6th, 0500 is a special Confederate turn only. There's no Union turn. All Union artillery is limbered and cavalry is dismounted. We have our setup info here. Automatic victory if the Confederate player controls Pittsburgh Landing at the end of Union turn 14 on April 6th. Then the Confederate wins an automatic victory and the Union surrenders. Okay, control is determined by the side currently occupying or last to enter the hex. If the Confederate player does not win an automatic victory, then the player with the most victory points at the end of the game wins. And here's your casualty record. Each side scores 1 victory point for each casualty point on his opponent. Counter sheet includes 3 casualty markers per side, 1, 10, and 100. Move the casualty markers along the casualty track to reflect 1 point per strength point lost and 1 point per star for each leader eliminated. And scenario 2 is the full battle. Starts with the 0500 turn on April 6th, ends after the Confederate 1800 turn on April 7th, which is turn 31. Turn 1, again, is a special turn where only the Confederates play. And we have our setup rules again. Confederate would still get an automatic victory for controlling Pittsburgh Landing by the end of day 1. And if the Confederates don't win an automatic victory, then determine the winner by which player has the most victory points. Again, and this one actually includes some things that are territorial in nature based on where you finish up. Then we have the what ifs, some strategy, some design notes. And since we've gone kind of long, then here on the back, since we've gone kind of long, I won't go through all the components. We'll see them when we play. So that seems like a fair judgment here. We'll have a 40-minute rule review, I guess I'll call it, and then the gameplay. So here is the tables, some of the tables, our movement chart, morale chart, firing range type for infantry and dismounted cavalry, mounted cavalry, and unlimbered artillery. Combat results, right? Our M's for morale checks, the numbers for strength point losses, and then the numbers with R indicate also retreat after losing strength points and a morale check. All right, so that'll wrap up this part of the show, and we'll continue now with some gameplay. Okay, so here's a look at the setup here. I have not yet covered the Union forces with their unalerted markers. They're up in this area, and I will move down the map and show you the rest, but I wanted to show you the tracks at the top here. So, of course, game title is here. Here's our loss track. There's a casualty 1 for the Union is blue, and the casualty 1 for the Confederates is gray. The tens and hundreds are over here, as is the Union turn marker. Now here we have turn and date. We are on turn 1. It's 0500 on April 6th. This is a reinforcement entry turn for the Confederates, and you'll see that here in a minute. Down here on turn 5, Grant will arrive because he was out to the north when the battle started at his headquarters, which was not down near Pittsburgh Landing. It was in it was in a town nearby. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but he was absent at the start of the battle. Then we have Lew Wallace will arrive on turn 14, and the rest of the Army of the Ohio will arrive on turn 15. The Confederates have an arriving reinforcement on turn 18. And that is it for arrivals, unless we decide to bring in the Army of the Trans-Mississippi, which is the what if, which I probably will not do. And I'm not even sure how long or how much of the game I'll play, but we will get started here momentarily. Okay, so moving down the map to show some of the setup as we get ready to play. Here we have the 2nd Division that is commanded by Wallace, and these are his units here. Okay, so here's Wallace. Here we have the 2 Army of the Tennessee artillery batteries A and B. We have an unbrigaded Prentiss here with 14 strength points. Now this is Pittsburgh Landing, which is, of course, the victory hex for the Confederacy if they can capture it on day 1 by 1800 hours. Down here we have Hurlbut's 4th Division, the red guys. Okay. Over here is green. These are McClernand. That's the 1st Division. Then down here is Sherman's group. That's the 5th Division. And you can kind of see the start here of the 6th Division rather. Oh, Sherman does have 1 unit out here, kind of out on its own. 6th Division here under Prentiss. And of course, you do have this guy up here who's not brigaded, but is a member of Prentiss's force. Now I'll go down to the bottom and you'll get to see where the Confederates are. The tide of battle markers, I just set them aside beside the board here in their active state so they can be used, the Union and the Confederacy. Okay, and down here, here's 3rd Corps, which is under Hardee. And the leaders I stuck underneath and this is true of the Union forces as well. Like Sherman is here with the artillery for the 5th Division. Hardee's here with Wood's brigade. And you can see Cleburne is up here, and Shaver, etc. This is part of the 2nd Corps under Braxton Bragg. He's kind of this greenish color. He's got, so these are the 2 corps that are on map at the start, prior to the start of turn 1. Hardee's Corps and Bragg's Corps. Now the other corps, Polk is here, 1st Corps, and I put Johnston with him. And Johnston kind of hung out historically. I think he was with Polk's corps at the beginning of the battle. Then over here we've got Beauregard and some of the cavalry, which was somewhat independent, under Wharton, Nathan Bedford Forrest, and Adams. And then you have Breckinridge's Reserve Corps here as well. So those are the 4 corps of the Confederate Army. And then off over here, you can see some of the markers and stuff that I'll be using to mark strength points. And also here are the Army of the Trans-Mississippi that we won't be using, but they are there. So that would be for the optional rules under Van Dorn, I think, was who was commanding them. All right, so, oh no, McCullough, sorry. Anyway, that's the start. So we'll begin here in a moment by bringing these guys on map and starting our our gameplay. So the first part is the command sequence or command phase of the sequence of play. So basically, you just confirm that everybody's in command. We're worried about the Confederates; it's their turn. Um, so Hardy is here, right? And his men are all within command range, which is 4. So if he's here, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and that one's obviously 1. Bragg is here with Gibson. So 1, 2, um, obviously 1 and 1 and 1 and 1, 1 and 2, and then this one, 1, 2, 3. Everybody's in command. He also has his sub-commanders here. Withers, so you can see Withers / Bragg here on Gladden, and Jackson and Chalmers are all under Withers. And Ruggles is up here, and he's under Bragg as well. And then he has Pond and Anderson underneath him, while Bragg, Owen Gibson, is under Ruggles as well, while Bragg commands essentially the cavalry and the artillery directly. So that is the organization of the Confederates. So that completes that one. Now we would go to the organization phase. The organization phase doesn't take place because in this particular battle, we do not have any of the activities that take place there, such as fording, building breastworks, and burning stuff down, burning up railroads and so on, its depots and all that stuff. So we don't have to worry about any of that. So we skip the organization phase. Now we go to the offensive artillery phase. Now we do have artillery, of course, but they are not in range. The range for artillery is 5. These should actually be limbered. Actually, I should flip these over. The range for artillery is 5. And you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is probably about the closest Union unit to one of the artilleries, so they cannot fire at that range. I'm going to flip Bragg's artillery over to the limbered side as well, because they will be moving. They're not deployed for battle. They are only moving right now. So with no artillery phase, we go to the movement phase. All right, so this is pretty straightforward. Now, our terrain effects chart here will give you the cost of moving anywhere, right? So here's our movement cost, your terrain bonus, and whether it blocks line of sight. This battlefield is heavily forested. I've been there, and yeah, there's a lot of trees. And so, with all the forest, line of sight is very restricted. And you basically almost have to be literally on top of each other to actually do anything, because woods does block line of sight. So essentially, there's not going to be a lot of ranged fire in here because of that. But we're talking about movement right now. So clear and orchard is 1. Road is 1. Woods is 2. If you go up a level, you add 1. Down a level is no change. Creeks are prohibited and can't be crossed except at the bridge, except at bridges. Stream is no effect. The bridge +1 and allows the crossing. So it actually costs extra to cross the bridge, which makes sense because you have to condense your formation and go across the bridge. And then, of course, the Tennessee River is prohibited except to the gunboats. And I didn't mention them, but they're up there in the river, close to Pittsburgh Landing right now. All right, so the Shiloh line of sight blocking terrain, friendly units being fired over that are adjacent to the target, and line of sight is blocked by a hex of higher elevation than the elevation of both the firing and target unit and woods, right? Lots and lots of woods here, as you can see plainly by looking at the map. So if we move through woods, it costs 2, of course. Foot, basically, not mounted, costs 2 to move. I'm sorry, has 6 movement points. So Cleburne here, he's already up on this. He's at this level, the green level of terrain. So he's going to move here for 2. Now he can move down slope, right? But the other thing we want to consider before we move anything is the distance from Union forces here, right? He's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 currently. And at 5 is when you can start to snap them out of their slumber, so to speak, and get them roused, or right, according to our rules, as we saw a moment ago, if they're attacked, there are two ways for them to be alerted. They can be attacked, or during the Union phase, which is not right now, any unit within 5 hexes, unit must roll the die. If no other units, then all sorry. If no other Union units are already alerted, then you need a roll of 1 or 2 to alert the unit. So it becomes risky, right? But by the same token, we do want to kind of move towards them so we can fall on them and attack. But I'm thinking that we're going to send Hardy this way and hit him from the side, and then we'll send Bragg around probably this way. And we're going to hit Sherman first, most likely, and then maybe we'll move some of these other forces down this road and in this way to kind of come up on the eastern side. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to move Cleburne. So he's going to go 2, 3, 4, and then to move back into here would be 6. So he's going to stop right here, okay? He's out of line of sight because of all the intervening woods here. Now, this is a stream, so it can be crossed. This up here is actually it's out of shot right now. There is the Owl Creek, which is a little further north, and there's really nothing north of that, or north and west of that, so kind of forms a border, but there are bridges there where you can actually cross it. So we'll stop with Cleburne there. Now, Hardy actually has a movement of 9 because he's on his horse. He's a leader. But we're going to move him along with Wood. And we'll go 2, 4, 5, 6, and we'll stop him here. Then we'll bring our artillery. So they can, the best way for them to go would probably be 1, 3, 5, and stop here. That way they're still 1, 2, 3. They're still within command range because that's important, right? Now his command range is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just thinking about Shaver and this other artillery unit because they can go up a road. But again, I think we're going to swing them this way because I want to send Bragg up this road. So we're going to take Shaver here and go 1, 3, 5, 4 rather, and 6. Stop him there. Then we'll move this guy up the road. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we'll stop him right there. They're all within range now, and then we'll move up Bragg's unit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that off camera to kind of speed things up. You've seen one movement, and then we'll move on. There won't be any combat this phase or this turn because we're not up on top of them, and because of like here we in theory the range for infantry is only 1 anyway, so you need to be adjacent. But the artillery, as I mentioned, if we had moved the artillery to, say, here, they could have fired on the next turn at the Union forces. All right, so I'm going to pause a moment, and then we're going to move Bragg's forces up. I'll bring on the reinforcements, which I think happens in the rally phase, and then we'll continue on. Okay, I've completed the movement, and I said rally phase. The reinforcements come on as part of movement. So some of them came on through here, and that would cost them 1, 2, etc. And then here would be 1, 2, etc. So basically, here's Bragg, the greenish color. He pushed up this way, up the road, kind of, mostly, with some units off the road because of the stacking limits, 1 unit per hex. And then Polk's corps came on here along the southern road. They're pushing in this direction. We have our Army cavalry under Johnston with Forrest, Adams, and Wharton. They're kind of pushing in this direction as well. I may actually send them all the way out to the flank because they have increased movement of 9, and they're as long as they're mounted, they can move out this way and then maybe come up on this direction towards the enemy. They don't have a lot of strength points, as you can see, 7, 6, and 7. They're not infantry, so but they are good for adding a little punch, and then push. Like I said, we're going to push most of Polk's corps, I believe, up in this direction. Breckinridge is the reserve corps. He's right here right now. I may see how things develop as to whether we go up in this direction or we go in this direction. But obviously, our ultimate goal is up there in that direction, which is, of course, Pittsburgh Landing. So that would complete the movement phase, and then we would move on to the combat phase. But like I said, we don't have any combat. Following combat, we have the rally phase. So anybody with a route marker would remove it. You remove all fired markers, and anybody who was needed rallying because they're routed, you would attempt to rally them. All right, so now we would move over to the Union, but the Union doesn't really have a turn on the first turn. So we would actually move right into turn 2, and the Confederates would get to go again. Okay, so we have to start over with the command phase. Okay, so again, we already established when I did movement that these guys are in command. Now Bragg is here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. They're all in command, including the artillery down here. Of course, we also have Ruggles and Withers as well here. So they're in command. Breckinridge's whole group is right here all together and Beauregard is there as well. Johnston is here with 1st Division's artillery, or 2nd Division artillery right now. The commander is Polk. He's right at the front. So his cavalry is in command. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The cavalry here would also be in command, and so basically everybody's in command is what I'm saying. I don't want to spend too much time on that. We'll move on to the organization phase, which we skip. Then we move to the offensive artillery phase. Now, again, we don't really have any artillery that is in a position to fire right now, because I don't think we have anybody within line of sight. Because again, of the forest, we have some elevation here as well. So we're going to move right to the movement phase. Now, this time we can move units into areas where we can actually do some attacking. So here's Cleburne up here, and we can go 2, and then move over here, which would cost us 2 more. And we're crossing a stream, which actually would have no effect. So we can make that move and just do this. We could say 2, 4, right? And then we can take Hardy and Wood and do the same thing, where we could go 2, 4, 6. Okay, so now we're adjacent to the Union camp. Okay, so when we attack, assuming we do, and that is currently the plan, we will alert this entire division. This is Sherman's division. So by attacking them, all the units, if we just attack this guy up here, who is McDowell. So if we attack McDowell there with his 19 strength points, we can bring a lot of power to bear there, as you can see. We attack him, that's going to alert all of Sherman's other units. So it's to our benefit to hit Sherman's units all at once, or as many at once as we can. Now here we have Buckland. So we could say, okay, well, let's move Shaver 2, 4, 6. Now Shaver is there as well. Then now Hardy's corps is kind of small, three infantry brigades and a couple of artillery units. So we can move the artillery up as well. Go 1, 3, 5, and 2, 4, 6. So I'm going to, again, take a pause and move the rest of my forces. As you can tell here, Bragg's got some units that can get within range of Sherman. And then everyone else will kind of try to push in this direction to where we maybe won't alert some of Prentice's division here. Okay, so as you can see, I've moved up. We've got a decent amount of strength from Bragg's corps right here to hit these guys with. And Breckinridge's reserve corps is over here. Again, I want to be flexible to go this way or this way as needed. And then, of course, Polk is moving around in this direction. So I pushed Adams out here. And we've got 3 cavalry units here as kind of the initial force. And then, of course, we've got our follow-on here of artillery and infantry. So let's go to the next phase, which is, of course, the combat phase. Now, I didn't use column movement, which I guess I could have, and that would have been able to push these guys up faster. Maybe I'll do that on turn 3. If I decide to take Polk's main force in this direction. We'll think about that. But I did want to mention it because I haven't used it yet. So let's do combat. Now, this will be our first example of fire combat. Okay, so we indicate the target hex. We're going to attack here, right? So we're going to put this under here because it's still the camp. Okay, so we've got 23 and 26. That's 49. Right? The range chart is pretty straightforward here. Right? Fire range chart. Infantry and dismounted cavalry have a range of 1. Okay, mounted cavalry cannot fire, and artillery, they fire at twice their strength if they're unlimbered and at a range of 1 hex, and from 2 to 5, it's at 1 strength. Okay. Now, let's see. So we start here. We got 49 to 19, right? If we look at our so the 49, right? We total all the unmodified strength points. Then we reference the total number of strength points, okay? Because they could be doubled, normal, or halved, but they're none of those things here. So it's just 49. And the vertical column of the combat results table. So that would be up here in the 33 plus. All right. Now you roll the 10-sided die and apply modifiers from the die roll modifier list. It's down here. Okay. -2 because it is going to be in woods terrain. And no, they're only firing from 2 adjacent hexes, so we don't get the flanking bonus. So we roll. We'll use the red, I guess, for the Confederates here. They rolled a 3. And with the -2 modifier for the woods, that actually becomes a 1. And that is a loss of only 1 strength point for the Union there. So we have our markers over here. Right? So these markers here are how you monitor your strength points. So McDowell had 19. He now has 18. I'll put that there. Okay, and that is that for that combat. Then we would repeat it down here when we have Buckland. And we'll put him, he was here, right? Yeah, he was there. So he's only going to get attacked here. It's 20 to 20, so that's going to be a no difference, actually. And he would get a -2 if we actually do that. So what we may want to do is not attack him this turn. Well, it doesn't hurt to take a crack at it, right? But he is going to get that -2, so we need to roll a big number. So let's take this, and we'll roll again, and we got a 4, which becomes a 2, which is nothing. Okay, so no effect from that attack. But next turn, I'll be able to move my artillery up and put more fire on there if I want to, right? Okay, so next we have Gladden, right? And here, under here, we have Hildebrand, who has a strength of 17. So that would be a 3. So we would also lose. Now across the stream has no effect on the combat. So let's shoot at him too. Again, we get the -2 because he's in woods. And we rolled a 5, which becomes a 3, and that is nothing. Now here we have these two, Gibson and Anderson, with Bragg as well. So that's 39, and they only have 9 because that's artillery. Okay, so again, we're attacking the divisional artillery, and Sherman is there, but the leaders don't really matter for this. They only matter for morale checks. So it's 39 to 9, which is a plus 30. So that is in this column right here. We do get the, again, we get the, we get a bonus. We're upslope. Let's see, does that matter? It does not. Okay, so there actually is no modifier here. So this is going to be bad. And we got a 6. So a 6 on that column. 6 is 2. So he loses 2 strength points, leaving him with 7. So we take this guy and put it under here like so. And that's a 7. So he's now a 7, right? That is all the attacking we're going to do. So that would end the fire combat phase. Then we would move on to the rally phase where we don't have anything to do. And that ends that Confederate turn. But now we have the fact that the Union is now activated. Sherman's division is completely activated. Of course, most of them got attacked anyway. The one who didn't would be over here, Stewart. And even though he's not adjacent, I'm going to say he's going to get activated too. 3506, is that where he's over here? Okay. All right. So that ends that. And now we would go to the first turn where the Union can actually do something because Sherman's corps is now awake and alert. Okay, so first we go to our command phase here for the Union. Now we do have one unit that is going to be out of command, and that is Stewart over here with Sherman's group because he's so far away. Because Sherman is here, and you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He's 8 away, so obviously he is definitely out of command, and he needs to be within 4 to be within command. Now, the next thing would be the administrative, or rather organizational, or I keep saying organizational, it's just organization phase, which I think here in the playbook, when it references the administration phase, you turn all units in an alerted division that are alerted, they can move and fire. And during the Union player, for each Confederate unit that ended within 5 hexes. So now we got units over here. This guy. So they're within 5. These are within 5. Right here is 1, 2, 3. That's within 5 as well. So we have to roll the die to see if they become alerted. So we're going to roll our blue die. And a 2 means he is alerted. So that activates Peabody. Now if we roll again, an 8 is no, so he's not. This one. Now we'll try this one right here. No. And lastly, that guy. And no. Okay. So next turn, the rest of the Prentice's division can be alerted because Peabody is now alerted. Okay, so now we'll move to the offensive artillery phase. And so what I think we're going to do here is this artillery was actually supposed to be limbered. All of the Union's artillery is supposed to be limbered. So I'm going to put them all on the limbered side that are revealed. The rest of them I'll do as we move, as they become alerted and activated. So we do have this guy here, the 5th division. He could actually fire if we flip him back over, right? We can now fire, and so his strength gets doubled, and he can fire at, maybe we should fire at like their artillery. Or what we could do is not fire and retreat him away from the enemy forces, which might be a better move for us. Would be to skedaddle, kind of. So I'm going to elect to not fire at them, even though they are there, and it would be useful to maybe try to knock out, maybe take something out of Anderson or here, because the odds would be relatively decent. At least worth taking a crack at it anyway. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to skip our offensive artillery and go right to movement. So once again, I will only I'll move everything off camera, but we're not going to move a whole lot anyway. Most of our forces remain unalerted. There's a lot of forces to the north that are off shot right now. The one I really want to move is this guy right here. So we're going to move him back out of this camp. So that would be 2 plus 1 for leaving the EZOC. So it's 3, 5, and that's as far as he can go because his movement. Actually, Limbird, let me confirm this. Yeah, Limbird artillery can move 6. Okay, so he'll move here. All right, and now we're going to take Sherman. And I'm going to move Sherman in with Hildebrand, I think. Yeah. All right, so now we've left that open. And we'll move to the combat phase. Now, we don't really have a whole lot of advantages in terms of fighting here, because that's a negative, this is even, and that's a negative. So you might say it would be better to retreat and try to put together a better line, perhaps. Since we haven't done any combat yet, I can still do some movement, I would say. So let's move McDowell back here to form more of a line with Buckland. And again, they have the movement to do it because they can afford the +1 for leaving the EZOC there. And they didn't move to another EZOC, so they're okay right where they are. So now we have a situation where it's going to be maybe slightly more beneficial, but maybe not. So let's see. I think that's pretty much it, unless I want Hildebrand here to attack, but I really don't. So then we have Peabody down here. Now this, on the other hand, may be worth doing. If Peabody is now alerted, we can move him and we can have him attack Anderson or this cavalry right here. So let's have him attack Anderson because Anderson's in open terrain. So we're going to have him attack him. It's 27 to 15. We don't get any shifts. So we're on the 12 column, 9 to 12. So a 4 or 5 would be morale check. Anything 6 to 9 is 1 strength point hit, and a 10 or more would be 2. And we get a 3. So a 3 does result in a morale check. Now, if we look at, we're here. He's got black morale, which means his morale is a 7. So we'll roll here. Whoops, not what I wanted to do. Where was Pond? He was with Ruggles. That's right. Okay. All right. I'll roll. And we rolled a 7. So it was a 9 briefly, and then it rolled over and played dead on a 7. So he passes, basically. So that's good for them, obviously. And that's the only thing the Union is going to do. So we would move to the rally phase. They don't have anybody routed. And now we'll go back to the Confederates. And I just realized I wasn't making morale checks prior to this. So let me do that now. We know that they were attacked and they were attacked. And this guy was also attacked. So two of them are black. He's green. So let's do their morale checks right now. I screwed this up. So McDowell is a black, which means he needs a 7. Okay, so 0 in this game, I believe, is a 10. So that means he failed that morale check. So he's an 18. And when you fail a morale check, you have to retreat, I think, or route. Yep. So they had to route. Okay, so they were here. So they would have to go 1, 2, 3. We'll put them here. We'll put a routed marker on there, which meant I would have had to rally them. See, I screwed this all up. I knew I forgot something. Then we could take Cleburne here and move him into the camp. And we'll talk about what that means in a moment. Now, these guys also had to take a check. Their morale's green, so it's only a 5. And he passes, so he passed. Now we'll check him, who was also, actually, no, it wasn't him. It was this guy who's black. And we rolled a 4. So those two actually passed. The only one that routed was McDowell. So McDowell routed and took a strength point loss. Okay, so he moves up into there, and when that happens, so they have to roll against the straggler recovery chart. So that's here on the board. It's also on the player aid card. So actually, it's not on the player aid card, actually, but it is up here. Die roll of 1 to 5 would be none. 6 to 8 is 1, and a 9 or 10 is 2. So let's roll this red die here. And if we roll anything 6 or higher, they're going to lose a strength point. They rolled a 4, so they don't lose any strength points. I'm going to remove this. Now that camp has been looted, but no strength was lost by Cleburne. Okay, now they would have to do a rally check. Their morale is black. So to pass it, they need to roll a 7 or less. And they do. So that would have removed the routed from them. And then I probably would have moved them up here like this. So now we're back where we should be, and I have this corrected. Yeah, we're all good now. So having done all that, we will move. I'm going to actually stop here, I think. So we're going to stop here at the end of turn 2. Because we did the rally phase for him, and now we're done. So that ends turn 2. So we'll go to turn 3, and I'll pick that up in the next gameplay video. I plan on doing 2 gameplay videos for this game, so you can look for that in the coming few days. Yeah, so that's it. If you have any questions, comments, things you want to get off your chest, whatever it may be, put it in the comment section. I will do my best to reply. I know I screwed that up. I will probably get some comments that say you screwed that up, because they'll type it as they actually encounter it rather than waiting to see that I actually noticed it later. But regardless, it doesn't matter. I did notice it, but I may have screwed other things up as well. So even though the game is relatively straightforward, I do tend to forget things sometimes, so I apologize for that. But that's going to do it for this one. I'm Joe. This is the Hexed Encounter channel. And until next time, as always, happy gaming. Oh, and don't forget to like, share, and or subscribe.